Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Jiayanu Pakhairagale ni hao chunoshumme washmale. Ohai Gonzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola. Bonjour. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore. Ahlan wa sahlan. Marhaba. Buna. Mucho. Gracias. Swabia. Balli kare. Hosh galden. Anaya Osair. Khuyamora. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan. It's a fine Monday morning over here in Islamabad. It's a little sunny out there. We're still waiting for it to get a little more colder so that we can, kind of shiver a little too as well. But that's not happening as of now. I don't know whether it's because of climate change or not, but for us, the weather is perfect these days, ladies and gentlemen. We hope and pray that you're ready to get started with the week with us. First things first. Hello, Haja. How are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. So, I want to ask you one question.
Okay.
So, a lot of us enjoy napping on the sofa, right?
Yeah.
Because some of the very sweet dream or some of the very sweet memories are made on the sofas, right?
Yes.
So, how do you feel about napping on the sofa? Are you fond of, napping on the sofa, or the bed is a more comfortable option?
I'm glad that you've asked me this as well. So there's only two states which I want myself to be in. Number one, either, I'm standing or, doing something.
Okay.
Number two, either I should be on the bed lying down.
Okay.
So now the irony over here is that, alhamdulillah, since I'm 6'3",
Okay.
there's hardly any sofa I can fit on.
All right.
So what I used to do was, while I was doing my shows for PTV Sports, I had to sit down in the TV lounge and look at all the matches and what's going on. So what I did was I literally tried to bring in the bigger sofa where I could actually lie myself down on, but it didn't really help.
Okay.
But when I go to England, the couch we have over there, I think it's an L-shaped couch, so that's more comfortable.
Yeah.
So that on that couch, obviously I've had a lot of memories, and with that quilt on top of it, it's a brown quilt and it feels wonderful. But over here in Pakistan, I don't think, because over there it's centrally heated,
True.
it's centrally air conditioned. Over here, in the TV lounge, you're just like, okay, the weather's not perfect. I probably need to go to my room and just watch the match on my cell phone. What about you? Have you made any memories while sleeping on the couch?
So, honestly speaking, I have a condition called scoliosis, so I'm not very comfortable napping on the sofa because I get a low back pain.
Okay.
But I do remember when I was in my bachelor's, in my graduate years, especially in the university, so we had a common room where there were a lot of sofas lined around the room, right? And it was a girls' common room, particularly for the girls, and there was no boys' common room. So a lot of my male friends would complain to me, and this is, unfair. This is unjust, because whenever we want to take a nap, we can't go anywhere. But it was a very a good point or good room there, because a lot of students used to converge there, female students, and they used to take naps sometimes, or sometimes they would discuss their ideas there. And one of my friend told me that I get always good ideas sitting on the sofa. I don't know why, because sofa is something we associate comfort with, right?
Yeah, I think recliners are more of my thing as well. But you know what? This irony is not only in your university, it's over here in PTV as well.
Right.
Because then all of those women producers got together that, okay, we're going to have this room to ourselves. And I don't know whether they still have it or not, but our producer can tell us. Yeah, they do have it even now. And they have this amazing printout on a paper which says that no men allowed inside the room, which we obviously need to respect, because wherever we men are, ladies and gentlemen, we can put our legs onto the table, probably just nap wherever we want to nap.
We have to offer the prayers there, so we need to have a more privacy there, especially in a vault. So it's important that we have a separate ladies' common room.
Exactly, and you certainly got it as well. But ladies and gentlemen, let's get started with the show. Well, if you certainly get some good ideas while sitting onto the couch, please make sure that you write to us. But first things first, let's see what's happening inside the country and outside the country. First up, the top stories. Let's go.
Wonderful. So, Pakistan and Turkey should work together and deepen their partnership for the joint development. This was stated by Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, who said Pakistan and Ankara are working together through collective research and pooling of resources to face common challenges and emerging threats. And he especially said that on the occasion when the Prime Minister went to Turkey in Istanbul, where they were inaugurating the Miljam covert ships, and Pakistan and Turkey are jointly producing and manufacturing these Miljam ships. And I think this is a big step in our naval cooperation, because obviously it is said that if you have a strong navy, then you also rule not just the seas but also the lands. And the kind of the environment that is converging in South Asia, in the Arabian Sea, in the Indian Ocean, is that we need to have a strong navy, and I think the self-sufficiency is the first step, and I think Pakistan is also going towards that.
And exactly, that's something which I would want to take pride in. So imagine that, within this subcontinent, we happen to be the first ever country where our Air Force is actually producing fighter jets. Not just that, we talk about a Pakistan army, we are producing our own tanks as well, for example, Khalid. Now, ladies and gentlemen, obviously it happens to be a joint venture with Turkey, where we are actually coming out and making sure that, we are going to have those ships which we require to protect our seas. And I believe it's wonderful that all the armed forces are becoming self-sufficient, and that's the road towards prosperity. Now, moving on towards the other one, where unfortunately Pakistan and Afghanistan are the only two countries on this very planet where polio still exists. And it's not because of the government that the polio still exists, it's because of the nation, it's because of our people, ladies and gentlemen, that we have been so reluctant about getting the polio drops as well. So an anti-polio campaign begins today in 3 districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and 9 districts of Punjab. And once again, it's a pledge, and I'm going to urge all of those families who are out there, please make sure that you guys, take your babies. If, you have a polio worker outside your door, make sure that they get these drops, ladies and gentlemen. This is very important for their successful future, for their healthier future. Please make sure that you do not put yourself into a controversy or a thought process where you think that, God forbid, it might not be right for your kids. I have 3 daughters, alhamdulillah. I'm a proud father of 3 daughters. And every time there's been a polio worker on my doorstep, number one, I've offered them a cup of tea, a glass of water, a few biscuits, alongside my kids getting all of those polio drops, which were important. So please make sure that you do that.
Okay, wonderful. So moving on to our other top stories, which
That's
is about yes, you can obviously, more comment on a very comprehensively. The England cricket team is in Islamabad for the Test series against Pakistan. The first test will begin in Rawalpindi on December 1st. So, Shahzad, I do believe that England's cricket team is also a very good cricket team because they won the World Cup, right?
Yep.
So, you want to comment on it? Who's the favorite team in these Test match series? Because I do feel Pakistan has always an upper hand in the Test matches, no?
When we look at Pakistan, I think Pakistan is not amongst the top ranked Test teams as well. But Babar Azam has actually got an opportunity to his hand where he can actually become the number 1 Test batter. He's only a few scores short as well, and we really need to kind of look into it. And Babar Azam really needs to be in his form. But for each and every individual who's out there in Rawalpindi, ladies and gentlemen, obviously PTV Sports will be telecasting it. We will be doing an entire transmission, the pre-match and the post-match. So please make sure to tune in alongside Mr. Rashid Latif, and I'll be there to do the honors. And for everybody who's going to commute somewhat around the Rawalpindi Stadium, please make sure that you leave before time so that there's no hassle. And this is how, soft diplomacy takes place, that the teams come over here, we go over there, and we play. And that's the way the nation's going to progress towards that better prosperity when we talk about sports. And not just that, I think even in different parts of the country now, hockey tournaments are taking place.
Wonderful.
And people who represent their own places and their particular areas, they are actually trying to promote all sorts of sports. And not just that. Our managing director for PTVC has promised us that, it's not just going to be cricket. In fact, on PTV National and PTV Global, if we'll have spare airtime, what we'll do is that we are going to promote all sorts of sports.
Wonderful. So we're always in for promoting sports because obviously sports teaches us more than that, right? So moving on to our segment of this show, which is about the digital banking and
financial literacy, probably.
Financial literacy about it. So, Shahzad, a lot of population of Pakistan is living in the rural areas, and obviously they do not have that sort of equipment or sufficient literacy to equip themselves with the very fastly changing contours of the digital banking, or are they in the banking field in the first place, or using the banking channel in the first place, right? So what sort of challenges are there? How is digital banking changing the entire environment of Pakistan, and how can we move forward and incorporate all of these technologies into Pakistan's financial landscape? So to have this conversation, we are very glad that we have been joined by Muhammad Ali Gul Faraz Saab, who happens to be CEO and MD Bank of Khyber. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you.
So it's an honor for us that you've taken our time all the way, from Peshawar. You've traveled to Islamabad. It's an honor. And we take pride in it, because when we talk about financial inclusion, I believe that it's the right of each and every individual who's out there. But the first thing that which I'm going to ask you is that over here what happens is that until and unless you're not a part of that process, you certainly do not really have that kind of trust on whatever application you go to transfer money from. So, initially when I got to know about online banking, I was like, okay, e-commerce, it's good. And so what we need to do is that, okay, whether if I'm going to transfer from my application, the other gentleman is going to get the money or not. What if it's just stuck somewhere in between? So initially, when we started, the trust level wasn't that high. But now when we speak about the rural areas or the families where people do not even have bank accounts, how do you think that they will have that trust on online banking or e-banking?
See, I think the apprehension that people have, especially older people, and maybe the middle-aged and older people generally feel a little apprehensive about information security, whether the money can be lost if they do it or goes to the wrong place. So I think banking has evolved in a way to become easier to track. So for instance, it used to be all signature based in the older days. And then as digital banking started, mobile banking started, we started going with a password or security code based system. But today, mobile banking apps are largely driven by biometrics. So firstly, to access your bank account on your phone, you need to use your thumbprint or your Face ID. So it is becoming increasingly more secure.
True.
Banks are also investing a lot of money in order to make sure that the overall system is secured and it cannot be hacked, and fraud cannot take place in that sense. But I would say that banking today is more secure than it used to be. And for people who are apprehensive, the thing is that when you do a digital transaction today, you instantly get a notification. You have just sent money to so-and-so. The check that you may have written and given out to somebody has just cleared.
True.
You have just received money.
Credit,
So basically, a text message comes and notifies you instantly. You have logged into your bank account. So you even know if someone else has logged into your account, if you haven't done it yourself. So you get these alerts. So I think that the information that we now provide our customers should hopefully make them feel secure, that their money is safe and they can operate it safely.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. So, sir, like I mentioned in the introduction too, that there are a lot of segment of the society which is residing in the rural areas. They are may not that much literate enough to, go to the banks and open their accounts. So what exactly are you doing in terms of the literacy to tap into that untapped potential of the rural areas?
So firstly, you are right in pointing out that financial inclusion is a major challenge for Pakistan, and actually it's a challenge that also disproportionately affects women. So I think that the way that technology has evolved, the pace at which smartphone penetration has grown in Pakistan. So things that were not so common are now actually common. So I can tell you that if we hire somebody new at our home, or a guest visits and their driver comes, the first thing they ask for is our Wi-Fi password because they want to access, YouTube or something to see entertainment. So I think I would say that people learn and they get used to these technologies quite quickly. So I think that technology itself is not the barrier. The growing penetration of smartphones in the population enables the possibility to bring increasing numbers of people into the financial net. So then the question is, how do we make it easy for them? So in this regard, banks have also been investing, and State Bank has introduced new directives on digital onboarding. So Bank of Khyber, for instance, now allows its customers to open a bank account without having to visit a branch. So they can be sitting in their homes. So if you imagine women in rural areas for whom traveling to a bank is difficult, they can just sit in their home, and basically as long as they have their ID documents and everything, they can open a bank account sitting in the comfort of their home.
So how do you make sure that you have that element of know your customers when you don't even interact with the...
They do, they actually the system is such that, either, you open up your account, online, but one way or the other, you will end up in a branch one day to receive your ATM so that you can start having that online transaction as well. And that's something which just recently happened with me too. So I really had to go to the branch, but eventually I was like, okay, when am I going to get my ATM card? So he was like, sir, whenever you're going to get the ATM card, only then you'll be able to do online banking. And I was like,
Right.
what do I have to do for that? Sir, you have to visit the branch. So then why do we have such immaculate system where we're telling people that, okay, you might not have to visit the branch, but then there will be one way or process in between where you still will have to visit the branch no matter what happens.
So I think
And it might vary from bank to bank.
the number of occasions when you need to visit a branch, if you are a mobile banking customer, are fewer and fewer. I can give you my own personal example that I opened my account and I had to visit the branch in the first instance.
Yeah.
Since then, despite being the CEO of Bank of Khyber and having a branch downstairs next to our building, I have not yet once had to go, so I can do all of my banking activity through my app.
Wow.
But when it comes to such requirements, we clearly want to make sure that the system is secure, that only the right person can register and log on to the app. So traditionally what banks have done is required you to have the ATM card in your possession. It's an element of security because the bank sends you the ATM card to your registered address, and so it is one further element of security to ensure that the person who is registering is the right person.
Exactly.
However, you are right in pointing out that there is, as we evolve, we should be able to do away with this requirement. So, we are, for instance, in the midst of removing the requirement to have a debit card in order to register. So, going forward, if you want to open an account online, digitally, you should be able to get a virtual debit card instantly that you can then use.
It's like Apple Pay.
Yeah, in order to make online transactions and so on. So I think we are definitely going in this direction, but banks have to be careful that the system is secure and it provides confidence that the right person is accessing the account.
And it's wonderful. Thank you very much for pointing this out as well, because I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity and share where I want airports to be accessible in such way as well.
Right.
For example, even if you have to travel to Lahore, I think it's easier to go by a car than by a plane, because it's eventually going to consume 5 or 6 hours of your daily life. I mean, why can't we treat airplanes just like buses? I think that's how we really need to be about it, and that's where banks are getting smarter. But now, sir, coming back to, and I might not have taken advantage of this opportunity to kind of check whether people living with disabilities can actually have the same accessibility on online banking, because I've seen all the applications usually are in English. People, God forbid, who cannot see, how do you think that financial inclusion will be at their doorstep in the first place, and our banks working in this manner? God forbid, if somebody's unable to walk, cannot go to the branch at all, how can they receive cash? So is our banks thinking about this as well? Because that happens to be the 6 or 7% of our population.
So I think when we talk about financial inclusion, clearly we are talking about including everybody that is currently unable to access the banking system. And I think within that, the largest proportion are actually not people with disabilities, but just people who are either from lower income groups or rural populations, and they haven't been able to access before. But when we talk specifically about disabilities, so I think that, again, digital banking is perhaps one of the best ways to provide access to more people. So people who are visually impaired, for instance, on a mobile app, you can have specifically larger sized information, which might, if someone is unable to see completely, I think maybe further technology is required where it can be a voice activated system. But we are working, the banking industry is working on a number of innovations, and all of that is designed to make sure that banking is easy to access and is accessible to all. So I would say that the possibilities of bringing people with visual impairments or other disabilities into the banking
So,
net
but
are higher now.
I'm very sorry, but even the infrastructure does not help it. I mean, I have hardly seen any ATMs with ramps on them as well for people on wheelchairs, whether to access it themselves, because alhamdulillah, now we are glad that we have the metro bus service. People can roam around freely, they can go, we have elevators, escalators, And alhamdulillah, so we are moving towards where people who are living with disabilities can actually be independent. So when we talk about banks and the infrastructure banks are building up, because it's a larger chunk of banks investment where they do continuously invest on their branches and opening up newer systems for people so that it's more accessible. But then usually we do not see infrastructure supporting them. I mean, I would see a branch on the first floor, but no ramps at all.
You're right in pointing out that accessibility in our cities is an issue across the country. State Bank has required banks to have ramps to access the branches.
True.
But I would also say that some of the urban environment where banks branches are, it is very difficult to provide a ramp that is practical and useful.
True.
There are places where the angle from the street is such that a ramp is there, but it is not really very usable. So I think this is a national challenge which goes beyond banking, where our cities and our urban infrastructure has to evolve. But I would say again, when we're talking about digital banking, the easiest thing for somebody with a disability in terms of accessibility is to not have to go to a bank at all or go to an ATM at all. They do their banking, do their payments, etc., sitting at home. So I think that is something that makes their life easier.
Wonderful. So, Shahzad, it is said about the technology or digitalization that it is a great leveler. Why? Because it has also diffused power to the common person, to the grassroots level. But obviously in Pakistan, we see that it is also a great divider, because the penetration of the digital technologies is not there very much, especially when it comes to the rural areas, right, sir? So what are some of the trends that you see are emerging in the digital banking system, especially in terms of technology?
So I think firstly, I would say that technology and digital banking is definitely an enabler.
Okay.
So you have a large number of young people that are doing freelance work, working for international organizations and receiving their payments through digital channels. And this was something that has been made possible through digital financial services. When we talk about rural, I can give you one example. We had
So we don't have PayPal here. I mean, a lot of freelancers who want to have the money or the dollars coming in, I mean, they do face some sort of
Even the Play Store is in jeopardy.
I mean, no, that was a fake news. That was clarified by the State Bank.
So the fact is that Pakistan has exchange controls, and until we get to a state where, as a country, we have plentiful foreign currency reserves so that international transactions can be made without any controls, I think we will have to accept some limitations. But I think there is still significant progress, and receiving payments from abroad, State Bank facilitates it, the bank facilitates it. So it is not as challenging, but I wanted to just touch upon, because you mentioned rural areas. So we had devastating floods in Pakistan recently, and so within KP, the area that saw the biggest devastation was around DI Khan.
True.
And there are significant pockets over there. It's a large area where basically there are no banks available. So the government of KP wanted to provide assistance to these people whose homes have been demolished in order to reconstruct their homes. So approximately 50,000 people, mostly from rural areas all over the province, but significant numbers of them from DI Khan were involved. And we took data from the government of the affectees, and we were able to open bank accounts in bulk and ask them to just visit the bank once, where they just signed the form, collected the ATM card, and had access to the money that the government had prepared or allocated for them. So digital banking does provide opportunities to extend welfare and assistance to large numbers of population, and it's very important for Pakistan because we've had a number of such challenges in the past as well. So this is something that has made it possible to provide quick and very direct, targeted assistance to the right people.
So please list some of the CSR activities that your organization is doing.
Bank of Khyber and corporate social responsibility. Well, that's an interesting one. Please go ahead.
Well, just on Friday, we concluded a program that was running for about 2 months, where we partnered and supported an initiative by a UK government development agency and a Pakistani consulting outfit. And the objective of this program was to train women from all over KP who are interested in running home-based businesses, and we provided them training on financial literacy and how to use the digital banking. At the same time, the training syllabus included how to run your own e-commerce business. So this is a way of enabling these women to run businesses and earn a living in their home. And this went across different parts of the province. So we're very proud of that.
And it's wonderful. Even we are proud of that as well, that, eventually,
Right.
because my father, alhamdulillah, has a bank account in Bank of Khyber, so I've been very regular to the branch.
Right.
And, when you enter the Bank of Khyber branch, it certainly does not give you a very different vibe from what commercial banks do. And I think that's where we really want our government institutions to be. But, sir, very quickly, 2 or 3 things which you can address particularly. So usually what happens is that, if you rush to the bank and if there's larger amount of your money which you want to withdraw, usually, the teller would actually tell you, sir, system down hai. Now, do you think that it really is happening, or it's just to make a fool out of you for the person who's actually deposited so much amount of money into the bank so that they can use them overnight to invest in T-bills and then earn from whatever they want to earn, and then all of a sudden I'm there, I need 5 million out of the bank, oh sir, aaj the system down hai. Does it really work like that?
Well, firstly, the thing is that now you don't need to visit the branch to, do a large payment. So you can withdraw the money, send it to your brokerage account or investment account through your app. I think that
But the limit is only 1 million. I cannot go beyond 1 million.
well, actually, banks are now Bank of Khyber allows you to do 2 million, for
Okay,
instance.
wow.
Now, and the limit is something that you set yourself, which is important in the context
But it doesn't
of
go beyond
security.
1 million. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't go beyond 1 million. So it starts at 50,000, and then the transfer limit comes to 1 million only.
Yes. No, I think like every bank sets the
Yes.
upper ceiling themselves. So Bank of Khyber now allows up to 2 million.
I need to open an account in Bank of Khyber then.
Absolutely, you do, and you can set your limit yourself. So, for instance, if you're worried about maybe sending money to the wrong place, although it is very, very difficult for that to happen, you can set a lower limit. But the banks are now, I would say that they are technology companies with a financial services operation. So increasingly it is possible that sometimes there are disruptions in the system. They should be rare, and they should not be so long that it should prevent you from accessing your money.
Exactly. And one last thing, and that is that, so imagine that it's our money which is with the banks, right? So the banks actually use them to invest them wherever, and they get the return. It's not just us, because, we have a current account, it does not really matter to us. So every time we're transferring money online, for example, if it's 100,000 rupees, I think they're going to deduct 100 rupees from my account. I mean, so you have my money already, which you're investing to earn your money, and then you're still deducting money from my money, so that, whenever I'm transferring it to somebody else. Don't you think that the State Bank can actually bring in some newer policies where it is more convenient for people, because people do think about these 100 rupees or 50 rupees transaction fees?
Certainly. So there is a new payment system that State Bank launched called Rast, and it is free. And on top of that, it is instant, and it is a system where it is also linked with a mobile number. So it is very easy to use, and it results in an instantaneous and free transfer. So actually, digital banking services are providing a lot of very quick and free services, which would have required a lot of time and effort. So traveling to go to see a bank and standing in line, and time is also costly. So actually, banks are providing a lot of services for free, but importantly, you can make payments through Rast free of cost, and they're instantaneous.
Wow, wonderful. I never knew that, and every time I logged on to my banking application, it would always tell me to create a Rast ID, and I was like, okay, I don't know whether it's important or not, but thank you very much, sir, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you, and especially keeping in view that, that Bank of Khyber is actually providing all sorts of services which any other commercial banks are providing, and the experience has always been wonderful. I've had the first-hand experience myself, and it's for the people to kind of trust the government institutions as well, because yes, they're not only banks, they're technology companies now. So with that, we're actually heading out towards a short break. But if we were to ask ourselves, or Ali Bhai over here, that whether what made him a banker is something which we might be talking about in the next segment.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, Shahzad also mentioned, because it was coming from a very personal tone of the Shahzad, because his father had an account in the Bank of Khyber, and he also told that how one gets to become the banker in the first place. So that's bring into the importance of the career counseling so much, so that I do feel, Shahzad, sometimes that our parents, they are still stuck in the very archaic models of, pushing their kids to become a doctor or engineers. Maybe the matter of the fact is that they're not aware that how much technology or digitalization has changed our future, has changed our present, and there are a lot of jobs that have propped up. Probably they were not there before in their time, so that is why their thinking is like that. But that also brings into the importance of how much it is important to have a good career counseling, so that your future is clear and you need to have a clear future goals about your life.
Exactly. And in addition to that, I'm going to mention it over here because that's something which I've witnessed.
Okay.
For me to actually venture into television, going back 13 or 14 years, I think even that was a time when my family members, the extended family used to actually
Right.
tell me that, that this might not be a good profession.
Okay.
And things have turned out otherwise. So it
True.
was because of my parents, because they had that exposure back then, that
Wonderful.
that what the future holds. So to kind of talk about whether how important career counseling is, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be a career counselor. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Major Retired Usman Rajput Saab. Hello sir, Assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
Salam. Thank you very much. I am fine. How
So
are you?
absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. So a lot of times we get this question asked, where do you see yourself in next 5 years? And to
True.
find this question the most difficult one, because we might not even know about tomorrow, and here we are answering about the next 5 years. How important do you think is career counseling, and how will it help each and every individual who's watching us right now?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to talk about why there is so much importance of career counseling.
Sure.
For example, you plan for something. You decide to do something, you have to plan for that. For example, you have decided that you have to go to Lahore, even it's such a small thing, but still you have to plan your trip. So similarly, our life is it's given to you only once, but normally career counseling is not given any importance in our society. So what happens is you are going in different directions in your life, and suddenly you land up in a profession. You don't know whether you are fit for that profession or not. Just like you said, sometimes your parents choose the profession for you. And I've seen people who have spent their lives in a career, and when you talk about them, talk to them about their profession at the end of their life, like in the later part of their life, they say that this was not chosen for us. This was chosen for us. We did not choose our profession.
Yeah.
So here comes the importance of career counseling. So where should it start? I think primarily it should start at a very young age, like when you are a teenager. The first role comes of the parents. Like they should tell their children with their experience that how to plan their life and in which direction they should go. They should know the psychology of their child, like what kind of personality he has. He's either good for being a sportsman, or he can be a good doctor or engineer. Like these two are very traditional professions there. Sorry, I mentioned that.
Right.
But yes,
Yeah, please continue.
yes, and like that, they should assess the personality of the child, and then they should guide their child and provide him the requisite facilities and education and guidance for
Sir,
his
the way my
profession.
personality was while I was growing up, I don't think that there was any profession for me. I should have actually laid back at my place and be like, hey, juice leke aao. Something like that. So because, I think we have this mindset over here, because while I was growing up, I've always heard my parents telling me that if you're not going to study, you're not going to get a job. I mean, imagine that our generation was brought up thinking about jobs. Nobody spoke about creating opportunities for other people or being an entrepreneur. And now, alhamdulillah, we have another generation where they're thinking about being entrepreneurs and creating job
Right.
opportunities for other people. So when we speak about career counseling, do you think that it's only related to people who are thinking about serving somebody else, or is it about people who want to be entrepreneurs themselves?
I think it works for both.
Okay.
Like primarily, you are right. Like 30 to 40 years back, the main focus was on getting a job.
25 kar lena.
Like, okay, 25. Like since the advent of information technology, we saw global giants like Google, Facebook, Microsoft. And let me tell you, this entrepreneurship, something happened by accident as well. Like you must have heard about the story of Mark Zuckerberg. So how it happened. So the thing you were talking about, like creating jobs for other people, sometimes you choose that way and sometimes it happens by accident.
Yeah.
So, but if you choose to take that path, that you are going to be an entrepreneur and create a business where you will create job opportunities for different people, that is quite a difficult task.
Exactly. And very, very quickly, one more thing which I wanted to ask is, and that is something which I've observed in my own career line. And what I've observed is that for whatever I started doing right at the very early stages of my life, alhamdulillah, I mean, that's how Allah has actually made it possible for me that I was able to survive in it, number one. And number two, I always stuck to that. I was like, okay, now I'm not going to change my profession. And there were times in between when I actually thought about it that, okay, I might need to venture into something else. And it has always helped me staying true to my profession. For the very first day, I was a radio jockey, started my television career, and I've always been stuck with that. And alhamdulillah, it has helped me grow in enormous different ways as well. number one, obviously it might not even work for every individual.
True.
But do you think that staying true to what you initiated with in the first place will always help you? Or do you think that, just, probably if you're getting these thoughts over and over again that I need to venture into something else as a career counselor, what is more feasible?
I think what we are talking about here is consistency.
Yeah.
So that is a very good thing, and it's very rightfully brought out. Consistency in any profession is very important, but still there is room for improvement in a person's life.
True.
So sometimes if you think that, like you said, you were a radio jockey and you started your career in the media, but if at some stage you think it is not working, and you have some years of your life that you can start a new profession, and then maybe it will help you. But most probably, as a career counselor, I would advise that once you choose something in your life, you should stay consistent with that.
True.
Yes.
Thank you
And
very much for saying that.
Shahzad, I've seen this trend in a lot of Western or the developed countries, and I will particularly talk about the Belgium because I have a personal experience there, that teachers are actually looking out for the talent of their kids, and if they have the research potential, only then the teachers would recommend them to the universities. In Pakistan, we have this trend because everybody is going to the universities. Universities are churning out a lot of PhDs, and the quality of the content that is being produced is really bad as compared to the West. So, I mean, they have a very robust career counseling system in place, especially in the Western societies, where they are guiding their kids. Okay, if you have the potential, go towards that. If you don't have the potential, then you can have some sort of skill or the talent, trainings there, so that you can venture into that particular area or the particular field which suits your talent, right?
And we have an example over here. For example, let's speak about chartered accountants. They're only going to graduate as many chartered accountants as much the market requires.
Right.
So there's not going to be an overflow and an underflow of the chartered accountants out there, and that's how they've kept a control. So with countries like Belgium, or even in Europe or UK or USA, what they do is that their market has so much data and they collect so much data that they know that whatever field, how many graduates do they require. So that's one thing with graduates. I mean, do you think that career counseling comes in handy and it's just almost parallel to the kind of degree you're doing? Because I've seen a lot of engineers in professions where it does not have to do anything with engineering. So that has been a waste of their life of 4 years and money, and then eventually they've ventured into something which is not even close to engineering. So how does it work?
Like my ma'am was saying that career counseling is provided at good educational institutions.
At what point of your life do you think you need to be career counseled?
I think first of all at teenage,
Okay.
like in schools, like in private sector, if you go to good schools, if you put your children in good schools, you see they provide the children with career counseling. They have like cells in their school campuses where they address the issues of problematic children who are unable to focus on their studies. So that is also a part of career counseling. Secondly, I think when you are in some organization, in a professional organization as an employee, at that time again you are required to have career counseling. Midlife crisis, that is mostly hit when you are in your 30s, or some people are hit by that in their 40s.
Yeah.
So in your 30s and 40s, you are working at a mid-level position in some organization somewhere, like you and everyone else.
So you have to break that barrier to go beyond.
Yes, and for that, one very important thing I want to mention here is that career counseling or psychological help is considered a taboo in our society.
Not anymore though.
Still, it is
I
considered.
mean, it's just that when we tell somebody that yaar psychologically tujhe train karta hu, I think that's when it becomes a problem. Otherwise, why do we even have to tell people that we're trying to tame you psychologically?
Yes, people.
Just do it indirectly.
Yes, people feel shy of going to the psychologist or talking to someone about their interpersonal difficulties or problems. So I think it should be very normal in the society that if you are facing problem in your career or in any thing, you should consult person who is the right person to give you advice.
And talking about, especially you talked about the people who might face a dilemma, especially in the mid-30s and 40s, and obviously it's a very difficult time to change your profession because you are looking at a lot of things about the money and how you're going to support your family.
Allah se dua karte. You need to pray Allah, pray from Allah. You need to have that trust as well.
Obviously, we need to have that, but then again, I mean, changing your profession is risking a lot.
True.
But how do you feel one should go about that if one is feeling a strong dilemma in that sense that, especially in the mid-30s and 40s, is it always a good opportunity to change your field and, I mean, risk leaving up your job?
Well, that depends upon your personal situation as well. Like if you are so hard pressed in your personal life and you have so much responsibilities, which is traditionally said in our Pakistani society or Eastern society, or anywhere in the world for that matter, then I think it's very difficult to switch your career in your 30s and 40s.
Yep.
But if you are somewhat a little financially sound and you can have that leverage that you can make do a venture that you can afford, then I think it's not a bad idea. And because in mid 30s you still have the energy to take a new start and come up with a new career.
Ask the people who are in their mid 30s whether they have the same energy or not. But okay, let's do something which I believe will be very interesting for our viewers.
Okay.
Now I'm going to set an example, or probably give you an example that okay, this is the kind of situation my life is in, and then you give us a few chunks of your career counseling wisdom as well. So for example, for me, who's been on television for a longer period of time, can present, can speak. I mean, that's what I think about myself. And only if you're going to think better about yourself, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be able to perform better. Now, for somebody who's been in television, who's been out there, who's been in the public eye, wants to venture into politics, what are you going to recommend to me as a career counselor for me that, okay, this is how you can reach out to politics now from television? Let's do it.
A good bank balance.
Not always really, right? Let's see what the
Yes,
career
sir.
counselor needs to
Yes,
say.
absolutely perfect. Not always really, because some of the politicians do come from a very poor and very humble background.
So I'm going to be that one. From a humble one.
So the biggest advantage for you being into the media industry is that you have already reached to the public, and you have the confidence to face and how to talk, and this is you can bring it into utilization for your political career. Number one, and number two, secondly, you can use, like, it's not 1970s or 80s where television is the only medium. So there are so many social networks. You can like boost yourself over the social networks. This media job is again going to help you in your social network work. Then thirdly, you should start working at the grassroots level in your local neighborhood. And I think for that you don't need any finances. You need to be there. You need to
Just
be
be
with the
there
people. Just be there. Like for every jaise khushi gami, like you have to be there with your people. You have to address their issues. Like I hope being in the media industry, you must have a good public relations.
And this is exactly what I like. This is exactly what I like, that, to actually, it's not that you really need to be, I mean, I wasn't really expecting that he's going to tell me that, okay, you really need to go to this political party, talk to this political leader, and you will, and that's where your political career is going to start. I think what he made sense with was that, okay, you really need to be on the ground, and that's how people start working. And when you get that attention that, okay, there's this somebody who's actually working for our halqa or for our location, I think that's the time when people will start to vouch for you or vote for you at the same time. But thank you very much, sir, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation. And thank you very much for highlighting the importance of career counseling. And that's something which World This Morning has always been doing. We always made sure that every morning when me and Haja are over here with our team, we make sure to bring about that difference and that change in positive manner where you can learn something and then impart that knowledge to other people who might not even understand English. I mean, given the opportunity, I would want to do the same kind of a show in Urdu too as well.
Wonderful.
But inshallah, in days to come, we have a surprise for you on World This Morning.
Wonderful, and this brings us to the conclusion of this entire segment, and I think it also highlights importance of career counseling, how much it is important, especially nowadays when it is such a fastly changing digitalized world. So with that, we will say Allah Hafiz. Until next time, it's a goodbye and good morning.